I'm gonna tell you guys a story. Tell you a quick story. So I am live here in the Dominican Republic, and obviously I've stayed here a little bit longer than I wanted to because of the operation that I had on my eye. But it's been a good time and period of healing, and dealing with some things that have plagued me in my past. One of the things I feel appropriate to talk about now is the loss of my very, very good friend, Michael. This happened many, many years ago. It's something that has kind of tormented my mind and been one of those burdens that I've carried around in my life. And now I'm, letting it go along with many, many other things. So, without telling you a 3 hour story, I'm going to try and sum it up in 3 minutes. Michael was someone that I knew from the town that I grew up in, or I should say the county that I grew up in. And I was introduced to him from some friends of mine. And when I was younger, in my earlier 20s, growing up in the suburbs of New York, we would often go down into New York City to hit the clubs in New York, Lower East Side, Brooklyn, you know what I mean? Had some really great house parties back in the day when I was younger. Just a great place to meet people and dance and party and get into other things as well. But Michael was a good-hearted person. He was, and he was extremely passionate about music, something that I was very passionate about as well. He was a talented DJ, and he was an excellent friend. And I'm not making this story up here. I remember one time that I went down to the city to hang out with Michael, and we wanted to go out and, go hit up a warehouse party in New York City. And we didn't have much money. We didn't have much money at all. And, Michael had like, $30, and I'm like, well, I got 10. And he's like, all right, so we got 20 each. Like he was that kind of guy. Like, um, if if there was $40 between us, it's like, well, I got 20, you got 20. He was that kind of guy. He wanted to see everybody happy. He wanted to see everybody smile. And he wasn't just a DJ. He was like a really hard worker and like a good friend. Like when we would go out, he knew everybody and everybody knew him. He was a great guy, great personality, and he just had a love for life and music and like networking and meeting people. And he was always welcoming, and he would always share his last with you if, you needed something. Well, unfortunately, many years ago, what happened is I went down to the city to spend some time with Michael, and he had just came out of a rough breakup. And I believe I last saw him on a Sunday night. He had come out of a rough breakup. Now, we had actually decided in the city, the reason I came down that night was because we wanted to go see somebody named Carl Cox, who is from the Bahamas, and he is a massively famous EDM DJ. Okay, he's a party DJ, really, really popular, very popular guy, even to this day. I didn't know who he was. I had no idea who he was. So we went to see Carl Cox. It was great. It was amazing. And we actually met someone on that street that night. Her name was Emma. She is a woman that is from Macedonia. Now, this is many, many years ago. If you don't know where Macedonia is, it's a country in Eastern Europe. And if you don't know exactly where to look on the map, look at Greece. And then start looking around there. That's where Macedonia is. So we had a great night. We met some people. It was a good time. And we went back to Michael's apartment, where he had his DJ equipment set up. We would often hang out there. Sometimes he would mix. And at that time, I was really big into photography. So I was still shooting, not film. I had moved over to digital cameras at that time. I had started off with film. And, Mike would DJ and I would take, photos and, just like working on, my craft. Like he would work on his craft, I'd work on my craft. And that night I remember it was time for me to go, and I didn't really like staying over at people's houses. I'm still to this day, I was a truck driver then too, and I'm always on kind of like my personal space a little bit. So Mike had offered me, hey, you want to stay over, spend the night? And I was like, it was a long drive back. I was like, I could, but I've always kind of shied away from it. But I knew that something was plaguing and bothering Michael. I knew that he was upset from that recent breakup. I know that he was feeling lonely, and it's bothered me for years that I left that night. It's bothered me for years that I left. Um, I kind of wish I had stayed. I wish I had stayed with them. So what happened is I got in my car and I drove back up to Rockland County, New York, and I texted him the next day on Monday. Hey, it was a great time last night. He texted me back like, yeah, let's do it again, more or less something of that nature. And then I was the following day, Tuesday, spending time with my good friends Ed and Peter at their house, and Ed got the call that Michael had passed away, and to this day, I'm still like chilled by when we got that news um, that he had passed away. And of course, several days later, we all went to and attended his funeral. It was a good funeral in the sense that there was a lot of people that showed up. A lot of people showed up because Mike was a great guy. He really was a great guy. So I've carried the guilt around with me for many, many years because out of all of us who knew him, at least, who lived in upstate New York, Mike had a lot of friends, plenty of people in the city, and I don't know what happened exactly on his last day because I wasn't there. That Monday, I don't know. And I believe he passed on Tuesday, but I knew something was plaguing him. I did. And he asked me to stay, and in retrospect, I wish I had because he might have just needed a friend. And me and him were good friends, you know what I mean? We both, talked about music a lot. We were very much into like music and the electronic music scene. Him more so. He was a very good DJ and he was actually getting pretty popular. I think he was actually slated to spin in Miami at Ultra. I think he was before he passed. But I've been carrying the guilt, and it's time to heal from that. I didn't know that, he was so troubled that he would end up, passing away basically 36 hours after I saw him last. But, I still look at the pictures of him that I had, and, when I would go down to Brooklyn, and we went to so many great, awesome, like parties together, you know what I mean? Drum and bass parties, house parties, minimal parties. And I met so many great friends through them. We used to produce music together and we would bounce tracks and back and forth with each other. But, today is a good day to talk about it. And we're going to get into some healing here from my good friend Michael, who was a very influential force in my life in terms of meeting people, living life to the fullest, loving life, loving music, and collaborating with others. So we're going to go back to the phone here, guys. All right, we're going back to the phone. And we're going to explore, and I'm going to read to you some things off of Google about healing. Okay. So let's just read. This is straight from Google, AI overview. Let's read, okay? Because we want to process this. And Mike, I miss you, man. And a lot of us do miss you. You're gone way too soon. Several Bible verses offer solace and hope related to healing. Some prominent examples include Isaiah 53:5, which states, "By his wounds we are healed." emphasizing the restorative power of Christ's sacrifice. Jeremiah 17:14. Heal me, O Lord, and I shall be healed. Expresses a plea for divine healing. Psalms 147:3 says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Speaks to both physically and emotional restoration. Now, I'm very wounded by what happened when Mike passed away. It wasn't something easy to process, and he was very young at the time. I believe he was 29. He was about to turn 30. Very, very young, way too young to pass away. Honestly, way too young. And, the guilt that I have from not staying, I feel somewhat responsible. I do, I'm not going to lie. I felt somewhat responsible. A friend in need, and I decided to drive home. And I ended up dating the girl, one of the girls that we met that night from Macedonia. We ended up dating for a month or two. And she eventually went back home to her country. But, I do miss those days, and I do miss the energy they had, and I do miss the things that he taught me about life and opening up to people and really just being yourself and making it happen and loving your life, And a lot of people disagreed with, what Mike was doing with his life, moving to Brooklyn to become a DJ. Not everybody was on board with that, but he found his soul tribe down there. He did. He found his soul tribe, and he introduced me to a lot of them, and he was someone who just, lightened up the room, and he was always focused on how you were doing. You know what I mean? He really was involved and invested in how are you doing, and we should do this together, and always, looking for the next experience, really living life, And I definitely miss that about him. I do miss that about him. He was a great guy. He really was. So let's keep on reading here, okay? Here's a more detailed look at some of the key verses. These are verses for healing from the Bible, okay? Isaiah 53:5, a verse is central to Christian understanding of healing, linking Jesus's suffering and death to the provision of healing for humanity. Jeremiah 17:14. This verse offers a simple, powerful plea for God's healing, recognizing the power of prayer. Psalm 147:3. This verse highlights God's compassion for those in pain and suffering, and I have dealt with some pain and suffering, offering solace and the promise of healing. James 5:14 and 15. This passage encourages believers to pray for one another and emphasize the power of faith and healing. 1 Peter 2:24. This verse reinforces the idea that Jesus took our sins and diseases upon himself, bringing about healing. Psalm 103:2 and 3. This verse praises God for forgiving sins and healing diseases, highlighting his comprehensive care. A verse for strength in hard times. Psalm 103:2 through 5. Praise the Lord, my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives all your sins and heals all your diseases, who redeems your life. Jeremiah 17:14 says, Heal me, O Lord, and I shall be healed. Save me, and I shall be saved, for thou art my praise. A verse for strength in hard times. A verse often used for strength in hard times is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. This verse reminds us that we have the power to overcome anything through God's strength. Now, dealing with someone's death is something that is tough to deal with, and as a man in Western society, what we tend to do sometimes is we tend to bury it, When my father died when I was 10 years old, I did the same thing. I just buried it, I didn't cry, I just buried it. And the same thing happened when Mike passed. But I mean, I did cry quite a bit at his funeral. I did. Obviously, a good friend of yours dying at a very young age, and me knowing that I was one of the last of our circle of friends. I was the last one to be with him. And like I said, I felt for many, many years that maybe I could have done something. Maybe would have encouraged him. Let's keep going. Here are some verses that can be helpful during challenging times. Psalm 46:1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Isaiah 40:31 says, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Psalm 23:4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Now, if any of you have ever been to New York City, and if any of you have ever been to New York City before, like the 2000s or even like that, there are parts of New York, even to this day, that are the valley of the shadow of death. It is a big city, and it is very real there. It is very real. And I don't go there anymore. I don't. I don't know the city like I used to when I was younger. And a lot of the places that I would frequent there were underground, warehouses and clubs and things like that. I was younger at the time. I was a lot younger. Anyway, let's keep going. Here we go. What's a powerful healing prayer from the Bible? I trust in your promise to forgive all my sins and heal all my diseases. That's Psalm 103:3. I believe that by Jesus' wounds, I have been healed. Isaiah 53:5. O Lord our God, who by word alone did heal all diseases, who did cure the kinswoman of Peter, you who chastise with pity and heal according to your goodness. Bible verses about healing a broken heart. This is important. This is maybe something that I need to read. Several Bible verses offer comfort and hope for those experiencing a broken heart, which is a real thing. Your heart can be broken in this world, and it can lead you to dark spaces and dark places. And I know that in Mike's last days, he was brokenhearted. I know that he had a relationship fall apart, and I don't know what else might have been going on in his life, but I wish at the time I had had some more encouraging words for him. I do, I really wish I did. Key passages include Psalm 34:18, Psalm 147:3, and Isaiah 61:1. which speak to God's closeness to the brokenhearted and his role in mending broken spirits. Additional verses encourage placing trust in God and casting cares upon him, as found in 1 Peter 5, verse 7, and Philippians 4, 6, and 7. Psalm 34:18. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Now that's deep. That's really deep because I've spent many years of my life crushed in spirit. I've had numerous people come up to me and say that, in real life, okay, like people who know me in real life, that I am a sad person, someone who walks around with a cloud over their head, a dark energy behind me, someone who has, a lot of troubles. And a way to summarize that would be someone who has a crushed spirit. There's been a lot of things that have happened to me in my life that have crushed my spirit, and it's good to walk around with a joyful heart, and I have not done so in, probably the past 15 years of my life. I haven't really been joyful, and my spirit has been crushed. And Mike's passing is one of those things that I carried around, one of those burdens that I carried around with me for many, many years, Psalm 147:3 says he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds, A lot of us have wounds from the world to this day. We're wounded by the things that happen in our society and world around us every day. And now we're at a time where we're wounded even by our smartphones and by social media. A lot of darkness has woven its way into what used to be just a way to call friends and text friends. And now we find ourselves, doom scrolling on social media apps and really just poisoning our brains with things that aren't of delight, aren't bettering ourselves, aren't healing ourselves, aren't uplifting ourselves, making ourselves better people, and it leads us to repeat cycles in life, which can lead to our own destruction. Let's keep reading, okay? Isaiah 61:1. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the captives and recovery of sight for the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to comfort all whom mourn, and to provide for those who grieve. In some way, shape, or form, we are all broken by something in this world. Some things have just left us devastated. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, or where you live, where you were born, whatever your skin color is. Something traumatically affects our lives. All of us have been through something like this. And with time, you probably learn, you're someone who buries issues, that you need to heal from those things. You have to heal from traumatic events. You have to forgive yourself, ask God for forgiveness, ask for peace, because having a tormented soul is a real thing. It's a very real thing. You hear about ex-military soldiers talking about it. I, as a truck driver, I know I lost out on many, many years of personal relationships, and I basically sold my body, to the trucking industry. I lost a lot of valuable time. I lost health. I lost people that I wanted to, have in my life. I lost finances. I picked up a lot of bad habits, and I have to let that go now. I have to accept the fact that that was one of the challenges of life that God wanted me to go through. And I realized from going through these challenges that it's important to just pray and ask God for help as we go through them, because life is challenging and there will be more challenges. There's good times too. It's not all bad. There are good times, but the world can really test you sometimes, and that goes for everybody. It's not just for me. It really can test you and break you down. First Peter 5, verse 7 says, "Cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you." God does care for us. Philippians 4, 6 and 7. We read that one already. Okay. Proverbs 17:22. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. Wow. And that really is true. If your spirit is broken or not at peace or suppressed, you will have a bad life. And I feel that that's been mainly my problem, is like my spirit has been broken by a lot of things that have happened in the world, and I've suppressed it, and if you see me like in the real world, I'll smile. I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'll be like, "Hey, everything's good." But in reality, things aren't good, in my head and in my thoughts. Sometimes I should have opened up more about things that were bothering me. And keeping a joyful heart is good medicine. That's why people say like laughter is the best medicine. It is, because somebody tells a funny joke and you laugh and you say and you feel it on the inside. You feel that joy come up inside of you, and it's important to keep a joyful heart, because once your spirit is crushed, you become completely ineffective as a person. You don't obtain your goals. You lose sight of things. You feel lost in the world. You don't feel like you know what's going on. You feel that everything in the world is against you. You feel that life is nothing but pain and suffering. Pain and suffering is part of life, but it's not life itself. Your spirit and your connectivity to spirit is really important as you travel along your journey in this realm, in the 3D world. So having a crushed spirit is something that you don't want. You want to feel uplifted. You want to feel happy. You want to feel at peace. And that is probably the most important thing, is that you feel at peace. And I'm starting to feel more and more at peace now. I am. What does the Bible say about letting go of someone that you love? The Bible emphasizes the importance of forgiveness and trusting in God's plan, even when letting go of someone you love is difficult. Now, we've all dealt with this, okay? Whether you've had a relationship that didn't work out, someone who passed away in your life, someone who died, a pet, can be a loved one that, you can lose. It can be very detrimental to you. Verses like Ephesians 4:32 encourage forgiveness, while Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6 remind us to trust in God's guidance. Ultimately, true love involves both a willingness to forgive and to let go when necessary, trusting that God will lead you to what is best for you. So, in summary, that's basically saying that things do fall apart in our lives. Things will be destroyed, relationships, things that we wanted to work out, maybe a job you wanted to work out, maybe you loved your job, maybe you loved a person, maybe you had a passionate relationship with someone that you wanted things to work out, maybe you had an awesome pet, maybe you had a great friend, and you wanted things to work out. And when they don't, because that's how life is, things, sometimes don't work out. It's saying that it's important to forgive and let go whatever has been removed from your life. If God removed something from your life, then maybe it was meant to be. And it's important that you trust that God will bring you to where you need to be, something to replace that, something better, something that will show what you've learned and how you've elevated. Sometimes people enter your life to teach you a lesson. And sometimes you might get attached to that person and you may not want that lesson to end. You might be devastated if they leave your life or if they pass away. But, the things and the memories I have from knowing Michael have stuck with me. I still, to this day, listen to a lot of EDM music. I'm a big fan of it. I still remember how passionately he was about producing and talking about music. And one of the things, I was envious about Mike, and I still miss about him to this day. And, I wish I could, maybe I should try and channel some of this, is that he was devout in following your passions. He was 100% all about, screw, modern society and, the man trying to oppress you and not wanting you to fulfill your dreams, not wanting to chase your dreams. Mike was 120% into chasing his dreams. Even if he didn't have to sleep or if he couldn't sleep, he would do it. If he had to work and if he had to DJ for 12 hours, he would do it. And, he's gone now. And that is something that I accept and I'm making peace with now. I did not want to see him go. A lot of people didn't want to see him go. But that's the way it turned out. And only God knows why. I don't, but God knows why. And, reading passages in scripture and, going on Google and just reading in general, searching for healing content is very, very helpful, Bible verses to read when heartbroken. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. We were just reading this one. John 14:27 says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you." Emotional healing. The Bible affirms that emotional healing is possible and desirable, with God being the ultimate source of comfort and restoration for those who are struggling emotionally. It encourages seeking God's guidance in managing emotions, trusting in His promises. It's so hard to trust sometimes, and seeking forgiveness. Yeah. Whatever bothers us or whatever we might feel that we did wrong, or, hey, I wish I can go back in time and change that, eventually you do have to move forward and you have to forgive yourself. You have to ask for forgiveness. And, you have to make peace with the situation and understand that what happened, and you can't change that. The reasons that things happen, you may not understand. You may never understand the reason why things happen. And that can be frustrating too. A lot of times as people, we want answers. Why did this happen? Was it my fault? What, why did this happen? And the real answer is that sometimes you're not going to know. You have to trust in His promises and seek forgiveness. You have to trust in God. How do you spiritually let go of someone you love? No matter how messy the breakup got, well, this is talking about relationships. In this instance, I'm talking about the passing of a friend. Acknowledge the good times that you shared, and that's what I think about too. I think about the good times I had when I used to hang out with Mike, and I still got some old photos from my DSLR when we used to hang out in Brooklyn. And make that your focus instead of thinking about the bad times, right? Focus on the good times. Let go. Always believe something remarkable is about to happen. Optimism. Say affirmations. That's why I read this stuff now, as I realize, there's so much negativity out in the world. Like, whether you believe in God or the Bible or whatnot is your preference, okay? That's up to you. But a lot of these verses are positive and they're uplifting, They're not negative. They're not dark. They're not designed to make you feel pain or hurt. They're designed to help you heal from pain and hurt, you know. Obviously, the Bible is an extremely long book, and there's a lot of verses and passages in there. A lot of them are good. Some of them are actually bad and negative as well. But accept change, send them love, be grateful, be more loving to yourself. That's a good one. We all could do that a little bit more. And live in the moment. Live in the moment is a good one too. Don't worry so much, or don't spend all your time worrying about what's coming tomorrow. Live in the moment, you know, experience life. It is a gift, you know, that we have. It's all a gift. So many good things in here. Although it is getting late, you know, I could go on reading this for hours, but I should probably get ready to lay down and get some rest. And I enjoy talking about this, even though it's something that, you know, I don't love talking about, but, you know, it is an event that happened. It's part of my life. And, you know, I want everyone to understand that I've been going through a very, very difficult period the past 2 years of my life. And maybe you've been going through one too. Maybe it's been even more difficult than my experience, but find peace, you know, however you can, amidst the struggle. You know, a lot of the verses that I was reading earlier today, you know, emphasize the fact that, like, you should seek God, like, while you're living your life, which means, that means you, like, while you're doing bad things, possibly while you're in sin, possibly while you're doing what you got to do to make it. You know what I mean? God puts us in situations sometimes where, you know, you may have to do what you have to do. And I mean, if you seek God and you ask for his help and his guidance to the situation, then yeah, you know, he will help you. Life is not perfect. We all have to do some things sometimes that are disheartening. Sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do to survive, you know. Sometimes we have to accept things that happened in our lives and process it and move on, even when you didn't want it to happen. And, you know, it can make you feel like your life is out of control. It can make you feel like the world is crushing you. It can make you feel like pain and suffering is all that there is, but there are better days ahead, but you have to have faith. And if you believe you deserve something, healing or forgiveness or peace, then if you righteously believe that you deserve it and you ask for God for it, and it's in his plan for you, then he will give it to you. The Bible says that. I don't know which verse, but the Bible does say that. And, you know, it's time for me to heal from this, you know. And I know a lot of you out there are going through all types of struggles. You know, I can't even imagine what some people are going through at this point in time in the world, you know. There's so much going on. So much technology and so many people who want to use it in negative ways. We as people could be so much more helpful to each other. We could all make the world a better place, but you know, the world that we live in is run by money. It's run by power and greed and money. That is the physical world that we live in. And there's a lot of temptation and sin here. And temptation and sin is just things that lead you off your path, that take you away from having a blessed and peaceful life, you know. And everyone should have access to that. Everyone should have access to peace and blessings and peace of mind and health and happiness. And it can be obtained. Just continue to be loving and caring and have faith. And if you do, I'm sure that God will solve your problems as well. Okay? I feel a lot better. I do. I do like reading these. It makes me feel better. And it makes me more appreciative of the time that we do have here. And I hope you all are appreciative of it too. And it's after midnight now, so we're going to turn the live off. But I appreciate all of you who have watched. And all of you who like and share and comment. And I know I have a few dedicated watchers there. Some are good, some are bad, but I appreciate you either way. Okay. You guys have a good night, and I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll talk to you all soon. Okay. See you later.